Hey, welcome back to the channel. Luke here. Today we're going to be talking about sandboxes or virtual sandboxes. If you're not familiar with those, essentially they're small environments that you can use if you're in information technology to continue your learning and learn really fast without impacting production environments or even development teams. You at work, you may have uh, an environment that's for development or staging or test. But if you're doing your own testing in those environments, a lot of the times those are shared, and it's not unique to you. These really allow you to get in and learn new features. For instance, if you're learning how to use Active Directory, if you're in a Windows environment, or SQL Server or Postgres, if you're a DBA, uh, they just give you so many options. And I've been using one for probably about 20 years. And a lot of the things that you see on this channel will be built in a small virtual sandbox. When it comes to building your sandbox, you have a lot of options. You can go the cloud route, which you can use Azure or AWS, or you can use tools like VMware Workstation Pro, which I do use a lot, or you can use Oracle VirtualBox, which we're going to be using today. I've found that using tools like HashiCorp, Vagrant, and Packer will allow you to add some automation into your sandbox so that you kind of get that cloud feel when you want to spin up a new virtual machine or add into your environment or revert any changes. You can use Vagrant to do that, and you're not spending all of your time creating a new virtual machine from scratch. Before we take a look at those two tools, though, I do want to kind of show you some of the reasons why you would use a tools like that versus using cloud resources. So I'm going to go ahead and switch the screen a little bit. And what I've got pulled up here is Azure's pricing calculator. AWS probably has something similar. And I know both do offer some virtual machines that are free for, I believe, up to a year. But those are very small virtual machines, and they are time constrained. So we're going to jump into the virtual machines, and we're going to go ahead and add that to our calculator. Again, I'm on Azure's site here. And we're just going to do a quick exercise to see just how much a typical sandbox that I personally use would cost in Azure a month. So usually I'll set up an environment that has a Windows domain controller, a either a Red Hat or Ubuntu Linux machine, so that I'm running Ansible from that, and then three, uh, usually at least three servers. One that's acting as my storage server, which is a Windows server with multiple disks that I'm going to use as an iSCSI target, and then two other servers. I personally work a lot with Microsoft SQL Server, so those other two servers will be SQL servers. So if that's four machines, actually five machines. So let's go ahead and just price that out. We'll keep the 8 GB of RAM, two vCPUs. Usually I'm able to assign more CPUs than that, but we'll leave that at that price point right now. We are also going to, let's go ahead and just change this number to uh, five, actually four Windows machines. And then we had the one Linux machine, but we'll just price out the Windows machines real quick. We're going to do the pay as you go, of course, since we're just building a sandbox. We don't know how long we're going to need it. And again, they do have some free offerings, which is they're very small virtual machines, and it really depends on what you're doing. You may get by just fine with those. But as you can see, for machines, for Windows machines using two vCPUs with 8 GB of RAM, uh, the 50 gig a temporary storage. That's an ephemeral drive. But let's say before we even add any disks, we're coming up with $548.96 per month. And I want to say that this one, let's see, product details. Let's take a look at just, that's not the right link. Documentation. This machine is a, let's see if it tells us if we hover over here. What I'm trying to see is how big the C drive is, or the OS drive. Usually they're 128 gigs. So we'll just assume that that's right. You'll notice this blurb that, hey, you can get $200 credit plus free monthly amounts of popular services for 12 months. Um, so you can see a Windows B1 has, I believe it's only one CPU. But we'll just stick with this. This is typically the size that I'll use in my sandbox, except for the vCPU count. But as you can see, it can get quite pricey. $548 per month is not something that, if you want your own environment, that you want to be spending that kind of money, or at least I personally don't. Uh, so let's take a look at the tools that we're going to be going over today. Again, we'll be going over those quickly, and I'll show you how to get started. But VirtualBox, you can either go here and manually download it. VirtualBox is a hypervisor. If you're not familiar with what a hypervisor is, this one is specifically a type 2 hypervisor, which means it runs on top of your OS. In my case, it's running on top of Windows 11. A type 1 hypervisor will run directly bare metal. It doesn't have to have another OS running under it. Typically, those are faster. VMware ESX is one. I believe Nutanix. There's a lot of different ones, but just know that VirtualBox and even VMware Workstation Pro are both type 2 hypervisors. So you can download that directly here, virtualbox.org. In a second, I'll show you an easier way. And then this is Vagrant. Vagrant is used to simplify development environments. So you'll see in a second. It's a very powerful tool, especially when combined with using Packer. Packer is not something that we'll look at today, but maybe in the future. But anyway, Vagrant gives you a set of command line tools that you can use to use a specific image, or a box in our case, to spin up your virtual machine. So you can have 4 virtual machines spun up really quickly using a command name called Vagrant UP. And we'll take a look at that today. And then if you go over to Vagrant Boxes, I mentioned briefly, but if you go to app.vagrantup.com, you'll see that there's just a lot of pre-made boxes there. I have already created one for this scenario. If you just go and type in automate SQL there in the search box, you'll see some of the boxes that I built and uploaded that I personally use. The one that we're going to be using today is this one, because it is for VirtualBox. These others are for VMware Workstation Pro. So instead of having to create a virtual machine, if you've ever installed Windows, then you know that there's an initial wizard that you've got to click through, and then you go through your initial configuration. Maybe you're setting the time zone, and a lot of other things that you want standardized across all of your images or your VMs. Well, using a box, you can do that once, and then have all of your virtual machines in your sandbox start at that same configuration point. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into actually, there's one other tool I want to show you real quick, Chocolatey. If you're not familiar with Chocolatey, it is a package manager for Windows. So if you're coming from a Linux world, then you'll know that there's package managers called Yum or apt-get. A lot of different ones there. Even on a Mac, then there's Homebrew. Chocolatey kind of gives you that same functionality, except for on Windows. So what we're going to do first is we'll download Chocolatey, and then we'll go through and install VirtualBox, Vagrant, and then we will build our virtual machine. Step one, though, is to make sure that your PC does support virtualization. So to do that, you can use Task Manager, and then you'll go to the CPU, and you just want to make sure that this virtualization says enabled. And mine does, so we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and open up this script. This is a PowerShell script. You can open this up. We're going to go ahead and open up Windows PowerShell ESE or ISE. Go ahead and close that, minimize that window, and we're going to go open up the install prerequisites. Now, if you're interested in doing it this way, I do have a PDF that you can download. I'll put the link down in the description, and then that link includes these scripts. So let's take a look at what this script is doing. The first thing it's going to do is make sure that Hyper-V is turned off, because you don't want to have multiple hypervisors running on the same machine, especially Hyper-V and VirtualBox. So that's the first check that this script does. If it's not enabled, then we're going to make sure that that the CPU or the machine does support virtualization. That's what this second step is doing. So this is just programmatically uh, checking that versus us having to manually open up Task Manager and taking a look there. If all is well, then it's going to proceed and download Chocolatey, which is what this step does. And then it's going to use Chocolatey to install VirtualBox, Vagrant, and then even VS Code. I've just found that VS Code is a little bit easier to use whenever you're dealing with Vagrant files, which is a Vagrant file is a configuration file that you use to build your environment. And we'll look at that in a second. But let's go ahead and run this. I'm actually going to jump off the screen. Once the setup is complete, I would go ahead and restart your machine. And then once it comes back online, uh, you should be ready to take a look at the Vagrant file. And we'll actually switch over and take a look at that in just a second. Right, our machine has come back up. You should notice a few other icons on your desktop, VMware, or sorry, Oracle VirtualBox and Visual Studio Code. Vagrant is just a command line utility, but we'll run it in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Vagrant file. Again, the Vagrant file is included in the PDF download. But this is Vagrant. It uses Ruby. Essentially, it's Ruby code, and it's Vagrantfile. That's the name of the config file with no extension. I won't go through everything in this file because this is just a quick walkthrough, and then I do want to show you the build. I don't want to take up all your time. So this is where we're defining our configuration. The name is WinSRV 2022. This is an important step. The vm.box is automate SQL / win 2022. If it's added like this, or if it's listed like this, then Vagrant will actually go out to uh, the website that we just looked at a second ago and look for this box and then download it. So that's what we're going to do. Some of this other stuff, this sets the host name, the communicator. Since we're using Windows, we're going to use WinRM. If you were using a Linux box, then you would use SSH. This is the username and password that was set when I built the image. Again, we'll cover that in another video. And then this is WinRM. It's going to retry up to 300 times with a 5-second delay in between those. These are a few other settings that are specific to the VirtualBox provider, and you can find more information. Again, all of that stuff is in the PDF. We're going to assign 4 CPUs to our virtual machine. We are going to bring up the GUI. There is a way that you can create the virtual machine in the background, but we've got it set to true, so we'll actually see it build. And then we're going to set our VRAM to 256 meg, and we're going to disable uh, remote desktop. That's a VirtualBox extension that I don't have installed. So let's go ahead and jump into the command line or a terminal window. I have this Vagrant file stored in this directory, free boxes. So real quick, we'll just make sure that Vagrant is working from our command command line, and then I'm just going to run Vagrant -- version to get the version. So I can tell that Vagrant has been added to my path, and then my Vagrant version is 2.4.1. So to create a virtual machine, just use Vagrant UP. And the first time it's going to take a little bit because it will download that image at the Win 2022 image that I created. So you can see here it's downloading it from vagrantcloud.com and then this URL. It's about 10 or 11 gigs. So once that's downloaded, then Vagrant will actually create your virtual machine from that box. So you can see that VirtualBox spun up behind the command line or the command window. So you can see it's still booting up. It may boot a couple more times because the first thing that it's going to do, if you're familiar with Windows, there's essentially a unique SID for each image that's built. The first time that this one boots up, it will run sysprep to generate a new SID or a unique ID for that machine, and then start back up. And it will also set the host name. So I believe that's it. After that reboot, it set the host name. We can look at the host name real quick by going into the server manager. You can also resize this window. You can do right control F to go full screen, and then control F again to minimize it. So you can see that the computer name was set to Win SRV 2022, which we defined in our Vagrant file, and that was defined here. And you can see if this image was created a few days ago, but if you need to rearm it, you can just Google how to rearm Windows Server 2022 Eval Edition, and it should extend it another 180 days. And then you can go in and look at this PC. You can see that it's a 60 gig C drive. You can add additional disks to it. And then let's go ahead and check the resources real quick. Under performance, you can see it's got our 4 cores and then it also has 4 gigs of RAM. To manage this virtual machine, you can jump back to your command window, and to stop it, you can run Vagrant HALT, and this will stop that machine. If you had multiple machines in that Vagrant file or defined in that Vagrant file, running Vagrant HALT would stop all of those machines. You can also pass in a specific machine name to Vagrant HALT to only stop that one specific machine. There's a lot of documentation out on HashiCorp's website, and then also I've got more details inside that PDF that I mentioned earlier. And I'll put the link in the description below. And we'll bring the machine back up one more time just so that you can see that it's a lot faster the second time. So now that it's went away, we don't see it. Just run Vagrant up again, and this time it should come up with just in a few seconds. Now you can run Vagrant Snapshot, which will take a snapshot of the machine so that you can revert back to that point in time if needed. So if you're going in and making a lot of changes to the machine, uh, but you want to wipe all those changes out after you get finished so that you can go through your steps again, then you can certainly do that with Vagrant Snapshot Save, and to restore you can do Vagrant Snapshot Restore. Again, all of those commands are out there on the HashiCorp's website. I've also got a course. Of course the course is over using Vagrant Packer and VMware, and then also we do cover Ansible in a small amount in that course. Uh, but again, thanks for watching, and if you find this valuable, just subscribe and like, and let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more videos on building your sandbox using VirtualBox, because it is a free tool and it's a very powerful tool that you can use to build out your simulated environment if you want to learn more about just about anything that runs on Windows or Linux. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.